Good morning, Lady Bosses. Welcome to Lady Bosses Facebook Live on Tuesday morning, Cinco de Mayo. I don't know where you are, but if you can, support a local Mexican restaurant today for takeout. That's what I think we're going to do later if I remember. Good morning. Somebody just popped in. Let's see. Oh, it's Rachel. Good morning, Rachie. Somebody else just got here. We'll wait just a minute. Oh, everybody's popping on. While we're waiting, before we get started, don't forget, every day if you like. Good morning, Kitty. Christine. Oh my gosh, Christine, how are you? Barbara. Oh, lots of people I haven't talked to in a while. Colleen, great to see you all. What else is that? Rachel, I already saw. Super. Remember, if you want to post on the Lady Bosses page, please feel free. Every day you are welcome to post something to tell us how we can support you. I know Kathy Marshall posted about her Color Street nails weeks ago, and it looks like Lady Bosses has really stepped up and supported her. I see a lot of you gals supporting her in her business and even sharing it with your friends. So that's awesome. That's the power of community and networking. So definitely feel free to post your ads. Every day I'm going to allow it until this whole thing is over. And then after that, maybe we'll do it like once a week or something. But please feel free to post. We are so happy to support you any way we can. Super awesome. Hey, Jody, how are you? Okay, 7 of you on. Let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about the fact that you create the stories in your head. Hey, Linda. And we've talked about that before, but let's talk about it very more specifically now, because I'm hearing so many stories now, and just a few of what I've heard in the past week are stories like, everything is going to change. Nothing in life is ever going to be the same again after this. That's one. Another one was a story from a mom who's really worried because she's got one of her kids is going to be a senior next year. And she's so worried because she already believes that her whole year is going to be shot, that she's going to miss out on the things that mean the most to her. This is next year. Other people saying, you know, this thing's going to come back bigger and stronger in the fall, and it's going to be worse than it is now. Okay, all that being said, first off, you know, for every story you hear in the media, and you're talking to Miss Skeptic here, I'm skeptical of everything I hear. The fact is that if you believe the exact opposite of that, I guarantee you can go find facts to support a contradictory thought. So every one of these stories has a lot of opinions and a lot of facts that support all those opinions. And I know you know that's right. That's not a surprise. But the bottom line is you're the one choosing the story you want to believe. And you might actually be looking at a story and be creating and fleshing it in even more and creating an even different story in your head. But the deal is, I want you to really acknowledge the fact that you're the one either creating or deciding which story to own. You're making it your story. And listen, none of that's surprising because there is no rule book for this. We have not ever been through this before, so we have no idea what's coming down the pike. And it's fear and panic of the unknown that's driving this and that's causing us to try and find a story because, listen, we're used to a certain amount of predictability in our lives, right? And when you know what's going to happen, when things are fairly predictable, you feel like you have a sense of control. But in a case like this, we have no idea what's going to happen. So we feel like we have no control over anything. And when you don't have control over anything, it'll leave you feeling very vulnerable and very scared and just panicked, because how can you make a plan when you have no idea what's going to be happening? And I think that's part of the reason that we have to embrace a story, because we have to feel like we have some sense of control. So we can't just say, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll figure it out when we get there. We feel like we need to know. We feel like, oh my gosh, I need closure. I need to have a full story fleshed in. I can't just have this skeleton of a story. I can't just take 1 minute at a time, having no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. We need to know because we need control. That's the problem. We need to feel like we have control of this. And unfortunately, this is a big area where you have no control at all. Good morning, Dale. So, I mean, look, silly, stupid example, but you know, if you work for a company and you're taking 2 weeks off for vacation, Okay, you know you're going to be gone 2 weeks. You know what needs to be done, so you can get your things caught up. You can prepare your coworkers to step in for you if that's what's needed. And then when you get back, you know exactly how you need to prioritize and what you need to do then to get caught up, right? It's all very predictable. You've done it before. Granted, some goofy things can come up. That's normal. But the bottom line is you can plan for that and you have control over it. We don't have control over this because we have no idea where it's going to go. Colleen, that's where conspiracy theories come from. Absolutely. We need answers. If you don't understand something, then, maybe it's a conspiracy theory. That's another story we can make up. So absolutely, there are so many different stories you could be making up in your head right now. But the reason we have to deal with it is because of the fact that creating these stories, and if we're creating these stories and living in this mental space, it really is creating fear and panic in our lives. And that is just totally going to sabotage your mental health. And that's going to put you in a really bad place. And we don't need to be in a bad place ever. But man, do you need to be in a bad place right now when you're locked down for already? I think we're in our 8th week and we don't know how long this is going to go on. So you need to be in a good mental space. You need to be in a healthy mental space because it's not just affecting you mentally and emotionally, but it's going to affect you physically if it hasn't already. So my goal here is to really try and give you some tools to help you to get in a better, healthier mental space, okay? So listen, because nothing about this is predictable and you have no control, like I said, it leaves you feeling helpless, leaves you feeling afraid. Problem is you don't know how you're going to respond if you don't know what's going to happen. So again, all comes down to control. So first off, like I said, accept the fact that the story you're believing is the story you've either chosen or created. And accurate or not, it's your reality. And you have to totally accept that, look, this is my reality. This is my space. So experience it, but experience it for a moment. Don't live there. I want to give you tools to get out of that moment, okay? I saw this little meme a few weeks ago, and it's so true. Worrying means you suffer twice. So, maybe the thing that you're believing, maybe the story in your head does end up being what happens. But now, not only do you have to deal with it then, it says worrying means you suffer twice. You're going to worry and suffer from that every single day until it does come to fruition. So really, do you want to be worrying about something 100 times more than you need to? Okay, so here are the tools. I have 2 tools for you. And here's the first one. The first one is when you hear something, okay, you're going to hear something on the news probably that's going to cause you to either embrace that story or to create your own story. So tool number 1, recognize the fact that there are other stories. Okay? No question. There are other stories out there. And here's what I suggest doing. I suggest that you get creative, okay? So let's take an example of one of the things we talked about. Everything will change. Nothing in life is ever going to be the same again. Okay, that's all the way out here. So let's do this mental exercise. Let's get creative. Let's make it a game. And you can even involve your family and say, listen, this is what they're saying. And this really concerns me. What could some other possible scenarios be? Seriously, make it a game. Make it a really healthy, fun, educational game. Okay, so that's all the way out here. Nothing is ever going to be the same again. So what do you think the story is all the way out here? All the way out here, there's a story that says, when this is all over, we're going to forget it ever happened and everything's going to go back to normal, right? They're the 2 extremes. Okay, well, right here, just this side of that extreme is like, okay, most things will go back to normal, but you're never going to be able to go out of your house again without wearing a mask. And you're never going to be without, 20 gallons or a 55-gallon drum of disinfectant. This side says everything is going to go back to normal, except maybe during flu season, we'll have to wear a mask. Or if the virus comes back, we might have to wear a mask in the store. And then maybe as you get closer to the middle, like maybe things go pretty much back to normal, but hey, during flu and virus season, stores are going to limit the number of people that come in. We'll have to be aware of our distancing, and we will have to wear masks. So I just created 5 different stories. And would you agree that every single one of those stories is potentially is valid, could potentially be what the future looks like? So here's the benefit of doing that. If you've got 5 stories that you realize these stories actually have pretty equal weight, well, now the story in your head that you've embraced that's scaring the crap out of you isn't all consuming and isn't so heavy, because if it's equal in weight to all these other stories, it gives, none of these stories have more power than any other. They're all pretty equal. So maybe you can just leave it there and not even pick a story, because like, okay, they're all pretty equal in weight. So how can I even pick one? How can I pick them? I would have to just like blindfold and just randomly pick one because they're so equal now in weight. So it helps you maybe not to pick a story and invite it into your life. Okay. But if you have to pick a story, I just read an article by a clinical psychologist that said if you have to pick a story, pick one in the middle, because statistically, most likely, that's where the reality is going to land. It's probably not going to be any of the extremes. It's probably going to be something in the middle. So land on that. You know, it's if you have to land somewhere, it makes a lot more sense because it's much more likely that that's what's going to happen. And then the big thing is, after you've done the exercise, after you've created all these different stories and realized, okay, these all have pretty equal weight, so I'm just not going to give them any space in my head right now. Come back to the present. The most important thing is always come back to the present. Anytime you can redirect your focus from the future to the present, you're going to minimize the potential of having your anxiety levels really rise, okay? So that's number one. That's the number one thing. Just create a whole lot of different stories. Again, that's a good exercise just because it challenges your creativity. It can make it a fun family thing. But at the end of it, think about how that supports the whole family. A lot of you have kids that are going through this too, kids of all different ages. And whatever you're dealing with, you know that they're experiencing too, and they're feeling it through you. So this is going to show them, first off, it's going to be a good life lesson, a really good tool for just dealing with anything in life where, you know, their future's unsure and they don't know what's going on. So it's going to give them some good exercises. It's going to help you to have fun as a family, you know, because you can make it fun. But if it's real serious and you don't want to call it fun, it's a family activity where you're really working on something together. And that teamwork in your family is something that's really important, because your kids are going through this too. Your husband is going through this too. Your partner, whoever you're living with, if you're living with anybody, is experiencing the same thing. So this is going to help everybody to feel a whole lot better about the fact that, okay, we just became logical and rational and realized it's not maybe all doomsday, that there are a lot of ways this can go. So why are we just choosing the worst and living in that space? Okay, that can be really healthy. So the second thing you can do, because another thing that will really help you is to have structure in your day. I've always said it, structure is your friend. And it really is, because you know what? You need to control the controllable. There's so many things in your life you can't control, and you have no control over what's going to happen. You can't begin to know how you're going to react because you don't know. But control what you can control. You can control your day, so control the controllable. Christine, I miss you too. We should talk. Okay, so here's what you do. To control your day, try really hard to have a daily routine. And have a daily routine you're going to follow every day. Set your alarm. If you want to sleep in, that's totally okay. I really don't like to get up before 8 o'clock. But set your alarm for 8 o'clock so you're not just finally rolling out of bed at 10 o'clock one day and 9 o'clock the next and maybe noon the next, and, you know, and maybe make sure you get dressed. You know, I like to go down and relax with my coffee and a glass of water before I ever get dressed. But then when I'm finished that, I come upstairs and I get dressed and I brush my teeth and wash my face and make my bed. Have some structure to your day. Structure really is your friend. And you know what? It sounds trivial. I mean, you think, whatever, she says this all the time, but getting in a rhythm is really a good way to adjust to life in general, but especially to your temporary life right now. Having a rhythm is just going to give you, again, control the controllable. you'll know what to do next. You know how to put one foot in front of the other if you have structure in your day. If your day's just loose and you don't have anything planned, it's going to be so easy to be tempted and to be sucked into the news or to social media. And, it's, or maybe not doing it all day, but you're doing it every few minutes because you're not doing anything else. You don't need to be constantly reminded of the fear and the panic that other people are feeling. Because listen, you turn on the news. My mom was just here for a few days and she'd watch the news and all the people they're interviewing who have had the virus and are struggling and how bad it was and how horrible it was. And they had to go live somewhere else. They couldn't even stay with their family. I'm not saying it doesn't exist and it's not real, but I've known 11 people who've had the virus and only 1 out of the 11 had it really, really bad. All the others were pretty mild cases. And I'm only saying that to say, why isn't the news talking about more of the positive things, more of the people that have had it and it hasn't been that bad? What is the true actual percentage, if you get it, that you're going to get it that severely? And yet the news is only feeding us the bad. And so we think if we're going to get it, we're going to be in the hospital, we might die. We're thinking the extreme. And again, that's the extreme. This is that it might not affect you in much harsher a way than a common cold, because I know a number of people who've had it and the intensity of it was no worse than a cold. But again, the reality is probably somewhere in between. The reality is if you get it, it's most likely you might really feel like crap for a week, but no worse than if you had a flu for a week. That's the reality of the majority of people who get it. But we go here, and the reason we go here is because this is what we're being fed. We're only seeing the bad. We're only seeing the extreme. We're not seeing a balance. So you have to step away from the news. And if you have structure in your day, you're not going to be watching the news every day. And be careful of your social media. Again, I'm seeing so many people who are just like so negative about it and so scared and just, I've had to, I said it last week, I think, I've had to unfriend and unfollow and hide so many people because it's just constant negativity. And again, this negativity is coming from the stories they've embraced. And I know that's real to them. And if I was with them and hanging out with them, I would totally have compassion for what they were feeling and what they were going through. But when I'm sitting in my space, do I need to be bombarded by that all day long? It's not healthy. It's not healthy. And for me, it doesn't make me scared because I don't go that place, but it gets me angry. It just gets me angry because it gets me angry because I know these people are diminishing their quality of life by just focusing on all this bad stuff and turning these stories into just such a bad, unhealthy mental place to live. So you have to move away from that, step away from that as much as you can. And you have to be careful of it because you have to be careful of what you let in. As you let that in, it's going to make you feel sick. I just get tense and stressed again because I get so angry because of the doom and gloom that so many people are painting. And I know they're getting it from a place where it's information they trust. But I'm just challenging you to create different stories and realize there are lots of stories and lots of ways this can go. And don't trust just one article you read or one thing you heard, even if it's the CDC or who. I mean, it's like, we trust them because they're government agencies. And do you hear the humor in that? Because, when have we ever trusted anything in the government so much? I mean, we know how much corruption there is. We know how inaccurate things can be. And do I trust them more than the news channels? I do, but I'm still skeptical. Bottom line, ladies, we just don't know. We don't know. So just try and weed out the negative and the stuff that's scaring you because we don't know. That's all I can say. You don't know. I don't know. I might know next week because my crystal ball's been out for repair for 2 months now and I haven't gotten it back. But if I get it back, I will be glad to tell you exactly what's going to happen. But unless anybody, I don't care if it's the CDC or the top-notch, R&D labs, I don't care who it is, no matter what they say they think they know, we know how every day that can change because, especially in a case like this, there's not any predictability because we're dealing with something brand new. So until anybody has a crystal ball, just embrace the fact that there are lots of stories and don't get hung up on one story. Okay, thank you, Lori. Thank you. It's all about perspective. It totally is. Okay, so let me see. To just start to wrap this up, just to recoup, you know that right now, pandemic time, majority of people are watching a lot of TV, eating a lot of crap. Man, I mean, we're buying it, making it ourselves, but oh my gosh, try and buy flour in the store. Everybody's Betty Crocker. Everybody's making desserts and cakes, and people aren't taking the best care of themselves physically right now. And that's obvious to us. It really is. Yeah. If you eat like crap, if you start to gain weight, you're going to be compromising your health. You totally know that. I don't have to tell you that. But for whatever reason, we're not as aware of that when it comes to our mental and our emotional health. So let's be as aware of the mental and emotional health, because it's going to have just as much of an effect on you as things you do as far as your nutrition and your exercise to affect your physical health. This will affect you physically. So it's so important to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally. And mentally and emotionally, your physical health is for the most part only going to affect you. But if you're really suffering mentally and emotionally, that's going to have such an impact, such a big impact on everybody around you. And everybody's going to suffer. So I want to see you ladies in a healthy place right now. This is like probably one of the most difficult things we've ever had to deal with. And the uncertainty makes it even bigger and scarier. But I want you to be healthy. I want you to be in a good place. So, I really hope you can implement some of this to not just help you, but to help everybody around you. Because if everybody around you starts to feel what you're feeling, it just starts to become this downward spiral. Everybody just goes down the toilet together, because that's how big an effect we have on each other. And nobody's going to be good to each other if we're all feeling that same stress and panic and frustration and fear. None of us are going to be able to support each other. So we have to really, really lock into people who can be supportive and positive right now. And if we're creating a negative atmosphere in our home and that spreads to everybody, then there's nobody left to be positive. So we want to start spreading positivity, not fear. So all that being said, last thing to say is if you're feeling really isolated, find time to reach out to other people. We can do, if you're not doing a Zoom call, do some Zoom calls so you can see each other's faces. But if you're not doing that, at least pick up the phone and talk to people. Don't isolate yourself from other people, because we need each other. And focus on the people that are going to be a positive influence, who are going to lift you up. Because again, we don't need to feed anything negative, because we're being bombarded by that already. So let's start feeding and really nourishing the positive. So, okay, quick, two things to do to stop the stories in your head. Number one, recognize that there's more than one story and get creative and actually create 5 different stories. So you give them equal power. So one bad story is not going to come and take up space in your head. And number 2, create rhythm in your day, create structure in your day, because when you have rhythm, when you have structure, it's going to cause you to always have something to move forward into. So you're not going to be just sitting around, tapping into the news, scrolling Facebook, and just, flooding yourself with all the negativity again. So that's it for today. Thank you for coming. Tracy, nice to see you. I know you came in late. Hope you can watch the replay. So ladies, have a great week. I will talk to you again next week. Bye.